brother, everybody thought it was good.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my coworkers said to me that she would go home and tell her husband, she actually has a good husband,
Right.
about like my coworker gets these flowers every week from this guy she's dating, and her husband was like, something is wrong with that. Men don't do that.
Wow.
This is what I'm gonna say, and I stand on it. And this is why I love this podcast. And as you know, I told my story publicly because who told us what to look for? Who taught us about red flags? I really feel like the generation before, well, the generation before us, I'll say, we grew up staying in a child's place.
Right.
Everything that happens in this house stays in this house. Nobody talked. So who taught me about red flags? Didn't nobody teach me about red flags? I didn't know about relationships, because relationships, you a child, stay in a child's place. Nobody talked about relationships, what you should accept, what you should not accept, what a deal breaker is, what a red flag is. We out here learning all of this because we getting hit upside the head, and we getting.
Well, you know what? Is it that we have? So let me ask you this: is it that we now have the language for it? But but
the language helps.
The language for it, but and the way that our elders would say, I don't think that's we. Here it is. We kind of had an aversion towards because we're going to prove them wrong, right? That's not a good idea. I don't think he's a good choice for you, and don't do that.
Nobody ever said that.
I never had that.
Nobody ever said that.
I never had that.
I didn't have that.
How are we supposed to know? So like their generation knows what red flags are because of social media, and everybody's talking about
the
it.
newer generation.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
there.
But the younger generation, like our children, will know what red flags are.
Right.
How are we supposed to know?
We did not know.
I will
On
not
top
take
of it, we're
responsibility
coming
for
from
his deception.
Well,
I will not.
You should
Let me
take
tell you what I have.
responsibility, and I don't think we should take responsibility
I never will.
for the behavior or the deception of another human being. I don't. I do not think that at all.
Yeah, but it's valid. People ask all the time. They be like, "Well, what did you?" No.
When my husband and I first separated the first time, I went around family members, and I was like, and we had at that point been married we had been together at least, the baby was 8 and the oldest was 14. So we'd been together for 16 years. And when we separated, after 16 years and 3 kids, and I would go around family and I was like, yeah, well, we're not together anymore, we're separated. The first question was, what did you do? What did you do?
What did you do?
What did I do?
And they also encourage you to go back.
And they encourage you to go back.
I don't care what the man did. Go back.
He made a mistake. He wasn't thinking. You got kids. You. And I'm like, but I'm unhappy. I'm not being seen. I'm not being cared for. I'm not being loved. I felt like, and some people think it's funny and it's cute and it's a cute little cliche, but I'm thinking after, I've been with you since I'm 21, I'm 41 years old, and you still don't know the day we were married? And I'm supposed to be like, oh, that's okay, because men don't remember wedding anniversaries. No, that's neglect. That's you don't care. But I'm supposed to take that on the chin and be like, that's what motherfuckers do. That's what men do. You got a husband. He's there with you and your 3 kids. Yeah, he's there with, but he's not really there with me.
Physically there, but not
he's
there.
He's not emotionally there. He's not lovingly there. He may love me, but he's not acting as if he is in love with me. He cherishes me. And I'm thinking like, I'm supposed to live with that just because he's here?
So I've heard the statement of recent.
Damn.
So there's been a statement that has been stated that we don't get to tell people how to love us. They love us the way they love us.
Right.
And then we choose if that's how we want to be loved. How does that resonate?
It resonates that most of us don't know what love is. Most of us haven't seen what a real loving relationship is. It resonates that sometimes I choose out of lack instead of out of, or I choose out of what I see, what I think is lack, instead of what I know for sure is loving for me. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Say that again.
We don't get to tell people how to love us. They love us how they love us.
Mm-hmm.
We only get to choose if that's how we want to be loved.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I don't know. I think we just ignore things sometimes. We see if they don't love us the way we want to be loved, and we just ignore it. That's what I feel like I did. I had red flags, but what I realized, like years later, right towards the end, was that there was familiarity in that relationship. And one night, it was real clear to me because I got off the phone with my mom, and he rushes in, and he's yelling at me, and I'm looking at him like, this is my mother.
Yes.
This is why I'm with this character, because this is familiar.
Yes.
Me being on the street in front of the Cheesecake Factory on Peachtree, asking to get out of the car, that was a red flag, and that was long before the wedding. Like, why did I deal with him anymore at all? I never got out of anybody's car. I felt so strongly, pull over and let me out of this car. If you know Peachtree, that's the biggest street in Atlanta. I was right in front of the Cheesecake Factory. I'm like, I cannot sit in this car with you. And it was something about the dynamic between the two of us. And it did not register for 6 years what it was. It took my mother being on the phone with me. My mother has had mental illness my whole life.
Right.
And I've dealt with that.
Right.
And so she was on the phone with me. And when you say something to her that offends her, she comes at you full machine gun. She unloads all of it. And I'm like, Mom, the next time you feel like doing that, can you please hold it? Don't do it. I stopped her. She was already unloaded, and I was not gonna move back into the house because we had just bought because of something that had happened. He had me arrested. That's what happened. I was not gonna come back, and then I finally came to the house, and he rushes in. I bought this house for you, and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, this is my mother.
Right.
Yeah. So if it's that familiar spirit, that's where I guess we have to have that work that we've done inside of ourselves in order to know you might not want to be with your mama, married to your mama, especially if there was a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Was
They call it a mother
did you have a
fraction.
single parent home?
Yeah, but I saw my father every day. My father was very active in my life. Like I
But
didn't
mom
have
was a
I didn't have
primary
that
caregiver?
absent mom. Yeah. For the most part, yeah. But he picked me up from school. I hung out with him. I mean, I hung out with my father.
Cool.
I was daddy's girl.
Good.
So I thought when we separated that he would do the same thing with my son. In my head, I thought.
Right.
And then he was like, he was mad. He was like,
Damn the kid, you
He
left
was-
me.
yeah. He was, yeah.
Wow.
So I agree with the statement, but yeah, I do have a right to choose, and I will not accept. I want to be loved a certain way, and so I won't accept anything less. Somebody could cheat on you and be like, "But I love you."
Well, they say that doesn't mean anything.
No.
I love you.
You
What
cannot
the-
cheat on me. I don't want that kind of love. So what I said is, like what you said, let's get an understanding of what love means to you up front. So when somebody tells me they love me in a relationship next time, what do you mean by that? Let's make sure that we mean the same thing.
Yeah.
Because you might mean that you love me, but you could cheat on me, you could lie to me, like you said, I can have a little fling over here, but it don't mean nothing because I still love. Let's get on the same page. Let's make sure we are defining this thing the same way. So
self-esteem was in a different place, was stronger. If you
I would not have chose this. I would have left. And it's sad because I had 3 beautiful children with this man. And honestly, the man is, you know, he's not horrible. He's not my man.
Got it.
You know.
Thank you for saying that.
I have to give grace
Yes,
to
thank you
him.
for saying that. Because I don't want, let me just say this, don't lose your thought. Because this is not about bashing men and saying marriage is horrific. Although I do think marriage is an institution. And I do think that we need to revisit how we see.
let's talk about that.
Yeah,
Let's talk
how we
about that.
see marriage.
Let's
Yeah,
talk
I
about it.
really, really believe that with every fiber of my being. And I believe that for those that are in the institution of Christian, which is a different world of having a relationship with God and having a relationship with, if you call it Jesus, is different. The institution is different. And so there are things that are put in place in this country, in other countries, but I'm not in them countries, so I don't know about that. But I know in this country that is definitely is women in a place of servitude. And then when you talk about black male and female marriages, they come in a whole another in the institution of marriage. So what are your thoughts on it? And that's in connection with, I wanted to say, in connection with what, you know, being able to say that he wasn't a bad man, he's just not your man. And there was some, you know, some things that you grew out of. You outgrew. What do you want to say?
About the institution?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, so my divorce, considering it was a pastor, it got real crazy real quick. Because we were only married 1 year and 4 months, but he's a pastor, and so he brings in cash. I work for the county of LA. I gotta check stuff, okay? I want spousal support. The pastor wanted me to pay on spousal support. I didn't have an attorney. He ran and got an attorney. Oh, I want her to pay for my attorney. What else? Everything he could think of, that's what he did. And so
don't lose your thought.
No, I won't.
So he pastored the church. Was it a big church?
Average. That's a Baptist church. It's average. Small.
I'm wondering because even to come.
I mean, he had a job too. He worked for, I won't say where he worked. He had a government job too, but he worked part time. He made less than I did on paper.
Got it.
He did bring
on
in
paper, but
this man was sending me flowers every week, took me out of the country. He got money, but it's not documented. So after spending over $40,000 in attorney fees, I agree. I still believe in love, y'all. I love love. I now, but this is what I tell people now. I do not want to be legally married again.
Right.
I said, if I meet somebody and they want to exchange vows, I will exchange vows because I will 100% commit. I will 100% commit to the right man. And if you want to have a ceremony, we can exchange vows. I will not do the paperwork. I will never again go into a court to end a relationship. When I want to be out, if you want to be out, if either of us change our minds, I want us to be able to walk away. Right. Why do I need to? Because I fought for 2 years just to be divorced. He wouldn't even end it because he was on my medical insurance. He drug the divorce out for 2 years just to stay on my medical insurance. I want to be out of this, and I couldn't get out until a judge let me out. Why? Then, so that's, and I'm gonna wrap it up. So that's number one. I never want a judge to tell me when I can end a relationship again.
That part.
But even the vows are flawed because let me tell y'all why I feel this way, for better or for worse. What he did to me was so horrible. I still love men. I still love love, but it was horrible. And we were in counseling, and the marriage counselor said, Well, you said for better or for worse.
Mm-mm.
What did you think?
What kind of counselor did you
Don't
have?
put applause on me.
Hold on. She said, what did you think worse would be? You don't get to pick worse. But that's true. Hold on.
Ooh.
That's true. I did say it.
You're right.
And you don't get to pick. When you say that, you don't know what worse is going to be.
It's true.
I will never say that again because
Everybody
you
know they
know.
don't think worse is gonna be
the worst. Well,
I'm thinking
this is what I
worse.
thought worse was. I'm
Right.
gonna tell you what I thought it was.
Tell
He
me.
might have an affair. He's
That
a
part.
pastor. Women throw themselves at pastors. I'm blaming
That's
women.
the worst.
And I said he might have an affair. If he has an affair, oh, it's gonna hurt me, but we can get past it. That was what I
He
thought.
might have a
This was
gambling
worse
addiction.
than an affair. You don't get to choose what worse is. I will
Like you don't
not
get to
say
choose
that.
how they love. You get to choose if they want to love you. How if you want them to love you.
Why are
But
we
you like-
saying that?
Well,
Why are
Even
we
in
saying
sickness
that?
and health, this is one woman. This is one joke. This one woman, she's like, sickness? Like, what kind of sickness are you talking about?
For real.
Right. You talking about a cold? You talking about like hairs falling off, skin peeling? What
What
are
we
you
talking about here?
No, for real.
And I was like, you know what? You got a point. I want to
Really?
be
That's
part.
funny.
We
And the
don't
cold
think
part
about
about
it.
it, as women, we're gonna be there for the sickness. These men, they out on the sickness, or they're out there.
I think you know what I think. I think it's really because I have been hearing stories of men, and I just, you know, where now I don't know men who's going through the process of healing. Let me qualify. And men who genuinely care for their woman, their marriage, their wife, and they really, and although it didn't work, they didn't want to harm.
Right.
You know, they did not want to harm her, and so they took them. You know, we talk about provider and protector, and so they provided and protected even in divorce. And I think that makes a difference in terms of your relationship. I'm sure there's some men out there who are going to hear this and say, yeah, well, what about women that do this, that, and the third? But, you know,
Right.
we're not talking about that. We'll talk about that another time. But we're not talking about that. So, but I think that when you talk about the institution of marriage, I think number one, the for better or worse needs to be clarified. I think we need to understand that it is a contract, especially in California. It is a contract, and if you don't, if you just decide that this is not working, and you can't even give the reason. You can have irreconcilable difference. But my understanding is that in the courts, it doesn't matter if they did X, Y, Z, and it don't matter in California. It just doesn't matter. And so, because it's a contract, a woman and a man has to be clear about who they're partnering with. Because if you are partnering with someone that's a narcissist, that doesn't, that's abusive emotionally, and what are all the things that we've talked about, you're gonna have problems. You know, when it all comes to full circle, or have an addiction problem, and that addiction creates the havoc in your marriage, or you get married because you were love bombed, and you know you got sex out of your head, and you think you're in love, and it was romance. It just felt good, and now you come up out of that because you do have to get up out. You gotta stop having sex at some point because that's a part of the love bombing. The sex is good, right? And so I think, you know, from what I'm seeing is we have to really revisit what is marriage, because there's romance, and then we talked about defining what love is, and I say love is commitment. So if love is commitment, then we got to be clear about.
That's why I said I'll do the vows. I don't need the paperwork. We can commit. We can exchange vows. Why
So
do we
you'll
need
never
paperwork?
commingle funds again.
I don't
I
think
can
so.
commingle funds. It's just not gonna be under contract.
Right. Yeah, I don't want the paperwork.
Maybe you need
Why
a
do I need it? No, people
No.
tell me that all the time. You still got to go to court. I'm not going to
No.
court to
Court
end the
behind
relationship
the
again.
relationship.
I will not do it. I will not do it. Why? To me, the marriage is the vow. It's the vow.
And
I will take the vow.
I've
don't
been
need the
separated
paperwork.
for 4 years, and I started dating 2 years ago. And people would tell me, you can't date because you're still married. And I'm like, I'm not married.
But these are also people that have never been married. And so I'm just like, I'm not married because for me, marriage is a vow. Marriage is a heart. That's a piece of paper. Now, I did get present to the fact that that piece of paper is important when you want to move on with another person in your life. That becomes, now it's 3 people in a relationship instead of 2, because if anything were to happen to me or anything were to happen to my ex-spouse, my new spouse might be responsible for it, you know, or he can't.
Or he has no say in it.
He has no say, or any. So then I understood where that contract can affect my moving forward. But honestly, for me, marriage is a vow. I don't love you. I don't want to be with you. I don't even like you anymore. We are not married.
You know what? It makes me think too, like the older generations, that paper was so important to them. Like, oh, you're going to be somebody's girlfriend forever, and then when they die, you're going to be listed in the program as a special friend. I'm fine. I'll be a special friend. Like, they made it like us. That was, and I get why. I'm not minimizing it. And so I have a daughter that is 27. She wants to be married really bad. I want to see her be married. I'm for marriage. I'm not anti-marriage. I want to make that very clear. I'm not anti-marriage at all. For me, though, I will be 50. Why? To me.
Well, you know what? I agree with you. I'm going to say this. I agree. My mother, God rest her soul, used to say, and I didn't understand it at the time. She says, if I ever got married again, or if I ever got committed in another, he can live in his house, and I can live in my house. And we can come together when we need to. And I said, that don't even make, I would say, Mom, that don't even make sense. Da, 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 da. Today I understand it, especially after being away, being divorced, living. It's been 2019 was when we officially separated. So from the end of 2019. So from December 2019 till now, I've been on my own. I've lived by myself. And I can't see me living in the same space with another person saying that. I just can't, I don't see it. Now, maybe if we had a big enough house, but I'm 61 today.
Yay!
And I just don't see that happening. Maybe it will. I just don't see that happening. I enjoy my peace too much at this stage in my life. Do I want to have a partner? Absolutely. Absolutely. In the words of you know who. No, I would love to have to be in partnership, but I am not willing to sacrifice my peace. I'm not willing to sacrifice my voice. I'm not willing to sacrifice my dream. I'm not willing to sacrifice my vision. I'm just not willing to sacrifice me. And if sacrificing me and compromising, we use that word compromising, and I don't believe you should have to compromise to be in a relationship. I believe that you come together and you find harmony, and I don't think that's compromise. Maybe I'm crazy, but at this stage of my life, I don't see it as, I see harmony. And if we can't harmonize, then I don't want it. I'm like, I'm cool. I don't want it, and I don't want, and that's what when we talk about the institution, I think that so much pressure is put on. I know in church, and I think about as a little girl, and I think about you mentioned get married because you don't want to be the girlfriend, or you don't want to have sex out of it because that's fornication and all the stuff that goes along with when you're not married and you get involved with.
And they fornicating anyway.
They fornicating, adultery, and all of it. Anyway.
That part too.
Anyway. So okay, that part. So we can tell the truth about it.
Yeah.
All right, or lie about it. And the truth of the matter is, they say the reason why it's not working is because there's more sin. No, that's crazy too. It's not. It wasn't working then. It's just that a lot of people stayed. Because a lot of they stayed because necessity.
Right.
We had a house. We have the children. Or the woman was a stay-at-home mom. on and on and on and on. You know, and they may have loved their partner. I'm not saying they didn't love their partners or their husbands or their wives. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying, many times we've seen them stay just because, you know, that's what I'm supposed to do, and they were miserable. So, ladies, let me ask you this. We've kind of covered a lot of ground. We talked about a lot of different things as it pertains to marriage. If you were to talk to your younger self, I know we hear this a lot, but I'm going to ask you, if you were to say the young lady before marriage, before you said I did, before you got before the minister or before the court, what would you tell her?
Girl, you are prime real estate. You are beachfront property. That's the way you need to carry yourself. Period.
Love it.
You ain't got no kids. You got youth. You are prime property. And everybody needs to treat you like you $1 million piece of property.
Love it.
I would say that I get to choose. I think most of the relationships, probably all the relationships that I was in, I felt like lucky to be chosen. Kind of like what you said, kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm like,
I'm the
I'm that
prize.
girl,
Yeah.
and but I get to decide. I just got with guys that liked me. Like, oh, somebody likes me. Somebody likes me. So I just felt lucky that somebody liked me when I should have said the same thing. Like, I get to choose. I'm beachfront
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
I get to choose. I didn't know that I had a choice. So, yeah.
So it was interesting that earlier this week, I was presented with it. If you could tell your younger self, you know, what would you tell her? And I was saying I would do shit so much differently, but I don't really know what the fuck I would do differently. I mean, I really have to get present to actually what I would do differently. I knew theoretically that I'm the prize and that I don't have to wait to be chosen, but what would I do differently so I can actually do that differently now? Because what I've realized that I'm doing the same shit that I did when I was 21 at 52. And supposedly I know better.
I want to ask you something. I don't know if it's appropriate though.
Ask me
Okay.
anything.
Because